All right, and we are live. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining in on this fireside chat. This one will really focus on the wedding industry and how wedding professionals and vendors are really using this crazy time to get creative with their business and remain fresh and relevant and competitive in this crazy market. So my name is Gabby Margus. I'm the Director of Sponsorship and Outreach for Fireside at 5. I will be facilitating this chat today. Just to tell you a little bit about Fireside at 5, we are a community-based programming and activation agency, and we work with local organizations and companies to really activate, educate, and inspire through in-person and virtual events. Of course, this is a virtual event, so thank you all for tuning in. And so what we typically do to start off each fireside chat is have our introductions go ahead. If everyone can just name their, of course, name, their title, the company that they work for or that they started, as well as what they really want to get out of the fireside chat. And so I will start. Like I said, I'm Gabby Margus, and back in March of this year, I was laid off from my position in the hospitality industry, and I worked predominantly with weddings, specifically wedding room blocks and sort of the catering side of weddings as well in previous positions. And so I'm super, super interested to hear about all of your insight and perspective on how this has impacted you. And hopefully we have a solution-based discussion that can bring some new ideas to the table and hopefully get the wedding industry back up and running as it was before. And I'll pass it on to Gertie.
Hi, everyone. So I'm the founder of Fireside at 5. My name is Gertie Harris. I'm really happy to be here today. I'm going to be co-facilitating with Gabby, so I'll be taking notes for our panelists to review after the chat is over. I'm really passionate about this subject, particularly. I worked in hospitality as well, doing marketing for 3 downtown Denver hotels. We used to host a bunch of weddings and events, and so as an event planner, former in my, marketing days, that was something that I really had a big passion for. So I'd love to hear you guys have pivoted and how we're going to come back in 2021 as a really strong industry going forward.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. And now we'll head over to Miss Amelia. If you can introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Amelia Moritz. I'm the owner of Allegre Weddings and Events. I'm looking to kind of get some more insight from other companies. I do run the Colorado Wedding Network online, so I kind of get to see a lot of what's going on in the industry, but it'll be nice to kind of get a direct perspective.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And Natalie? Oh, Natalie, you're muted. Oh, perfect.
Okay, I'm Natalie Warren. I am run human resources at Wedfully. So what Wedfully does is we do all virtual weddings. So we've really kind of blown up during this time and had a lot of success. So I'm really interested in kind of hearing from everybody and figuring out like how this virtual thing that we've been doing can really like marry, no pun intended, with like more traditional weddings and how we can like more seamlessly like work together in the future and like how we can kind of keep this trend going for people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Natalie. And then last but certainly not least, Jason.
Hi, everybody. I am Jason Mitchell-Kahn. I am the owner and creative director of my own namesake company, Jason Mitchell-Kahn & Co., which is a wedding planning company with offices in New York, Los Angeles, and now virtually available everywhere. And I'm also the director of weddings and editorial for Men's Vows magazine. And I'm really looking forward to hearing some other ideas of what other wedding professionals have done, looking at what we've all gone through this year as, rather than an obstacle, an opportunity to be innovative and creative.
That's so true. Thank you so much, Jason. Wonderful. So we're just going to get the party started here and just start off with one of the discussion questions. I think what I'm dying to hear is just in everybody's perspective, how did your specific company really change because of the COVID pandemic? What did you have to do, or what did you do in order to stay fresh and relevant during this time when a lot of small vendors and companies sort of went under? What made you all successful? And we could start anywhere. Amelia, if you would like to start. Perfect.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, once, COVID hit, it was a lot of panic, emails, phone calls, everybody was kind of on hold. So, we're very flexible because we're wedding planners. So our cost is just kind of our staff and for our services. So we just kind of held off and helped brides, kind of navigate their thought process because, of course, there's a lot of emotional stuff going on. They have to balance, their families and plans and monies and budgets and just everything. So we were kind of a liaison for that. So as kind of things slowed down, we directed more towards styled shoots just because we felt for a lot of vendors, they were bored and sad and depressed, and we all just kind of wanted to get creative. So we've done 4 so far in the last couple of months, and I think it's kind of bringing back that inspiration for vendors as a collaboration and just kind of getting one back on track. And I think brides are seeing that, and they're seeing some fresh ideas and getting tied back into the industry. We also do a lot of quick elopements as well because we rent out arches, so that's super kind of easy to balance out. So that's been fun. So that's kind of my take on it and kind of where we're at now.
Awesome. That's so interesting to hear too, especially with all of those, the concept of collaboration versus the competition, which I feel like because the market was so unbelievably saturated and still is in the wedding industry, a lot of times you try to find that competitive advantage and try to find a way to differentiate yourself from the others. And I feel like during this time, we really have banded together and collaborated in a lot more ways than we did before. So super insightful. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I was in a similar position as a wedding planner and having my own company where it was a little bit of an easier opportunity to stay afloat. Our overhead is very, very low. But not only did I want to support my clients, but I wanted to support my peers in the industry that were having a much tougher time. So many florists and bakeries and people with physical storefronts that were and huge staffs when all of a sudden they had no more revenue coming in, had to face some really, really stressful times. And so I really worked with so many people within the industry to promote this message of postpone and don't cancel, because we want everyone to stay in business as much as possible. And I think beyond being a resource for clients in the logistical way of dealing with postponement contracts and negotiating everything that needed to be changed, it was a bigger calling to make sure that we were a place of inspiration for them. This is such a scary time for everybody, having no real sense of certainty of when our world is going to be more recognizable. And even though we don't have the answers as to when that's going to be, as the creative people and the leaders and the planners, we still have to figure out a way to make sure our clients can look to us as ways to be creative and to move on and to still get excited about days that celebrate love.
Absolutely.
I'll chime in. I feel like our story is probably a little bit different than you guys. So in 2017, our founder, Caroline, founded Wedfleet, and it was a virtual wedding planning platform. And then when COVID hit, she had an idea. She had a friend at Zoom. She reached out and she was like, let's try like a Zoom wedding, like since people can't gather in March. So she reached out and ran her first Zoom wedding all by herself, which now we have 3 people running every wedding. So more power to her. I don't know how she did it. But I think that this time, it was like kind of the rebranding of our company and like what we do now. But B, I think as far as our clients, we've really kind of been like a safe haven to people. People will come to us and be like, I've planned my wedding like 5 times. I'm just so thankful that now that there's like a solution that I know is not going to get messed up. And like, I'm not going to have to, my venue's not going to cancel on me again because I'm in my backyard. And it's just kind of like their last saving grace, kind of this like COVID proof plan, if you will. So I think a lot of our clients have kind of come to us and have this big sigh of relief to know that they can still get married when they want to get married, even if it's going to look different than what they had originally planned.
Absolutely. And you said that some people had booked different venues 5 times and then finally come to you and been like, let's just do it virtual.
5 times might be an exaggeration, but you hear people come to us and they're, I mean, like 3 to 4 is not an exaggeration. And it's like this venue, and then you cut your guest list at this venue, and then that venue says no, and then you find a new venue, and then you cut your guest list again. And it's just like, people just are planning and planning and planning, and they're just exhausted by the end of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember when Noah's shut down the venue that was across the state. So I was part of a group on Facebook that helped brides all over. And so we got through booking brides and getting them a new venue. And then a month later, COVID hit. So some of these brides, like you said, it's 5 times they had to book a venue. And it's like to really keep that positivity and remind them why they're getting married, and to keep, the joy of it is kind of the tough part. And I think, a lot of them struggled with that, and having a virtual option pulled that somewhat for them, being able to share it with as many people as they could,
Absolutely. And do you think when it comes to a virtual wedding, I myself have never attended a virtual wedding before, but I have a lot of friends who have, and they were pleasantly surprised by that. The one factor that they were a little bit skeptical on was that intimacy, and really like the story behind a wedding and the joy behind a wedding. A lot of people tend to argue, well, it's not super intimate. It's not where I'm like, in that community-based setting. Where do you find ways to not combat that, but kind of have a rebuttal if a bride or groom or couple would ever come to you and say, we're on the fence about a virtual wedding, but we feel like this is the best option. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, so that's actually, it's interesting because that's like probably the question we get the most. And then like, I always joke, like our Monday post-weekend feedback, that's like the one thing that across the board our couples will comment on. Like, I felt so close to everybody, even though it was like virtual. Like, I can't believe how much like love I felt on like a virtual platform. So I feel like some of the things that we do is just like incorporate your guests as much as you can. Like, nobody wants to just be like a passive viewer. Like, how can we engage and incorporate everybody who's watching? So there's like a bunch of fun things that we'll do, from like reaching out to their guests for surprise videos that we'll play. I mean, we'll do like Zoom dance parties. And I know we have questions later on about like virtual reception tables and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. But just trying to make it not a passive experience for the guests, but how like interactive and engaging can we be, even given this virtual platform. And I think when people come to us, that's something that we really like pride ourselves on, is that we're not just streaming your wedding. It's actually an interactive wedding just on a virtual platform. So we love a good guest engagement and guest experience. And I think a lot of our couples and guests and clients all really feel that as well.
100%.
And I think it's really important to remind couples why they're getting married, and it's about them as a couple and not their guests, So as long as you're in the room with your husband or wife, or, embracing that moment and letting your guests experience virtually or not, So I think that's important for couples.
Yeah, and I think that in some ways, the reason we're having virtual nuptials now, because of the way this year has been, is also doing some of the heavy lifting of the experience, because this has been such an isolating year for so many people that people are loving these moments of connection, even if they are over Zoom, of getting to see couples exchange vows and go through the steps of a wedding, and showing that like life goes on even with all these things that are thrown this way. And ultimately, we celebrate things like love and connection. And I agree with you. I mean, it's amazing the reaction that people get afterwards, just being like, I never thought it was going to be that moving watching you get married on the screen, but I felt like I was there with you. And that's, it's a new task for us to be capable of doing, but it's really exciting to see people are achieving it.
Would you guys say that resetting expectations with your brides, grooms, clients is something that has been a big asset, or has that been a challenge to do? Like, when people come to you guys, are they feeling super overwhelmed? Are they in a good headspace? How do you guys make sure that they feel confident?
Reassurance and letting them feel that their emotions are okay. It's okay to, be overwhelmed, and you're not alone. And just kind of giving them support, and, sending them to kind of connect with other brides as well who are in the same boat. I think a lot of couples just look for that support because they are so lost and they don't know what to do. And, they're so confused. So I think just kind of reassuring them that it's okay and that we're here to support them no matter what.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you say that, Amelia, because you run a very successful Facebook page, the Colorado Weddings and Events. And what I have been a part of that group because I was a meeting planner. I think I've been in that group for about 2 years now. And I've noticed such a change in pace of the posts that brides and grooms and couples are really bringing to the table. Do you find that people are using your platform more so for support, to reach out to vendors to try to find the most affordable options, or simply just trying to get creative and plan a wedding themselves? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, it's kind of all over the board. I get a lot of posts, from vendors advertising their elopements, mostly a lot of elopement ideas. Okay. And then we get a lot of brides from other states. I've noticed recently, they are like, where do I go? What do I do? How do I get a license? And then you also get some brides who are looking for that support. And, I'm a COVID bride, is the common phrase I see.
COVID bride.
Right. What I really love most about the group is everyone comments, everybody's positive, they put great feedback and support. Like, it's okay, I did my wedding too, and I was able to plan it in a week, or, just giving that reaffirmation that it's going to happen. It's going to do it your way. It's 2020, do what you want. Screw the rules,
Exactly, 100%. And I have noticed that too. And I'm not sure if it's because of the amount of people within the group. And I'm so sorry, it's Colorado Wedding Network.
Yes.
If anyone wants to find that on Facebook and ask to join. And there's 4.5 thousand followers. But what I've noticed is even with large Facebook groups, you don't find a lot of people commenting. You just find people liking or, not even sharing. But every single post that I have seen, and I've been doing like a little bit of due diligence and research, there's been 26 plus comments, and they're all from different people, all very genuine, from a perspective that is helpful and supportive, instead of, just where brides feel like it's just them and their wedding planner, or them and their family, or whatever it may be. So there's a lot more of a community there that I've noticed.
Good. I'm glad to see that.
Awesome. And then Jason, tell us a little bit more, because you are both a part of Jason Mitchell Kahn and Co. and Men's Vows. And I know that Men's Vows has gone virtual, or I'm sorry, Jason Mitchell Kahn and Co. has gone virtual, but also Men's Vows has pivoted a little bit more towards catering towards that COVID bride, if you will. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, I would say we cater a little more to the COVID groom than the COVID bride. I mean, anyone is welcome. But
I agree.
Knowing our clientele. So, Men's Vows, we're a small team that runs the magazine. We have two founders, one who lives in Denver and the other in Los Angeles. And some other members of our team, live in Portland, and two of us are in New York. And I'm like I'm the wedding person at the magazine, as to everyone else does sort of different roles. So I bring a lot of the experience I get through running my company and working with the couples that I do to a lot of the stories that we tell from a wedding planning perspective within the company. And so as this year was unfolding in the way that it did, we thought it was very important to really share some tips about virtual wedding planning, because it was the trend, one of the trends of the year. And a lot of our readers aren't people that work with a wedding planner like one of us might be. And so we wanted to provide some tools for those that weren't necessarily working with one. So we did like a tutorial video on how to pull off a virtual wedding if you were doing it on your own. Yeah. And now I've done a second follow-up piece of what I think we're calling these sort of micro hybrid weddings, where you have a small guest count in person and then you're zooming out to a larger crowd, and how you sort of marry the balance of treating your in-person guests and those that are online, and making everyone feel like they're at the same event. I think at every industry we didn't have a choice but to go more virtual this year. And I think that as a wedding person, I never thought we were going to be living and working like this, but there are some things that I think are going to be here to stay, even when we're finally done with this virus. There's been some beautiful things that have come out of this experience.
100%.
I'm curious what some of those things are that you think will continue long past 2020. Well,
for one, I think now having it be a standard to broadcast your wedding to guests that are not there in person. I mean, for everyone else that ever just had a conflict to attend somebody's wedding, or couldn't afford a flight in for something, we're now setting the standard that they're going to be able to attend. And so the travel is no longer a barrier. The money is no longer a barrier. And I think that even if we hopefully are in a day when COVID is not like such a common word in our vocabulary, this whole experience is still going to be something that has changed all of us human beings in this world. And certainly certain demographics are always going to be a bit fearful about big crowds. Elderly people, immunocompromised people, they might really be scared about attending weddings. And so we want to make sure that even if it's not because of COVID, that we're always being sensitive to those needs and understanding why someone maybe feels it's better for them to RSVP no to in person, but RSVP yes to attend online.
Absolutely.
I think that's something that we say all the time too, just to piggyback, is like there's always somebody who can't go to your wedding for whatever reason it might be. So this is like such a nice little piece that I think will continue, and just like, hey, add this on. Therefore, you can either have a smaller guest count, you can have a more intimate wedding, but you can still invite all these people who you like want to be a part and witness your special day. So yeah, I completely agree and piggyback on that.
Absolutely. And as all wedding planners here, do you feel that you have to be more hands-on and have an increased level of support as a wedding planner who helps with a virtual event than with an in-person event? And why is that?
Hands-on, but 6 feet away.
Right. Absolutely. And how so with the level of being hands-on compared to in-person?
Well, I like any couple, I mean, you have to assess what their needs are and where they really need help versus not. I mean, some people you even telling them to log on to Zoom feels like an overwhelming ask, as to where several people have started doing that every day for work now.
I'm so sorry about that. Pardon.
So it is a bit of a case-to-case basis on where the needs are with the technical element that's involved now. I'm someone who never wants to be responsible for managing the tech side of a virtual wedding. I like a techie to do that, to make sure it goes perfect. But I have found that I think I'm even more involved with my clients that chose to get married this year, just because there's an added level of pressure, not only for them but for us. The weddings that I've done in person, what I noted was different for me this year is I would always sort of look around, and my job on the night is to make sure everyone's having a great time, and that the lighting is right and the music is right and the vibe is right, and that's a little harder to balance to strike right now, because some people's body language tells you that, yes, I'm here, but I'm not actually relaxed or having a good time. I'm sitting with my arms folded in a mask, but I want to be here. We need to make sure they're comfortable, and that's okay. I've noticed so many moments that I was like, in the past, this would be when I would just be making eye contact with a client and giving them a smile, and they can't see that because I'm in a mask. And so it's learning how to communicate a little bit differently. And also rethink a little bit the idea of what's just a great party. I mean, the ceremony is a more isolated, I think, event to do. But as far as limiting, the restricting now, the idea of getting everybody on a packed dance floor, which was often the goal of weddings in the past, it's a little bit different now because we're creating some different experiences.
Definitely. And when it comes to those virtual events, do you have, couples who are interested in booking events into 2021, even beyond that? What's the furthest that you've seen a wedding inquiry come in for virtual events?
I have not seen inquiries just for virtual events come out very far. The inquiries that are coming for 2021 and 2022 are people that are really hoping to have in-person events that are more reminiscent of what we were like before this, with, if we need added virtual support, that it would be there.
Okay, wonderful. And
so we're like pushing out like a little bit more each month. I think our latest one is September 2021. And that's actually really interesting. She is getting married in London. All her family's in the US. So she's like, I'm going to do this no matter what happens. So we're like, every month, I feel like we get pushed out like a couple more months, and people are like, I'm worried about guest count and numbers of gatherings. So I'm just going to do this anyway. It just kind of is like, want to make sure that my event is still going to go off.
Okay. And do you feel that, because when I was of course, back in at the Oxford and the Crawford hotels, I worked for Sage Hospitality. I had received wedding room block inquiries, but not typically just for weddings. Sometimes it was celebrations of love, or it was a virtual ceremony or an elopement that occurred, that they wanted to follow up with a celebration, an in-person celebration, the year following, or whenever things were kind of ramping back up again. Have you guys seen that same thing happen as well?
Yeah, I see that all the time. It's, hey, we know we want to get married. Let's just have our wedding here. And then we'll kind of be like, well, you can do all these things. Like, okay, that's great. Like, let's do all those things. And then we'll have a party. I've been hearing a lot of our 2-year anniversary party. I think people are pushing it out 2 years because they're like, better safe than sorry. Let's just push it out to 2022. So yeah, a lot of like, we're just gonna get married and then let's have an in-person party like down the road sometime, but take off the stress of having to plan like the whole wedding during all this craziness when I think things are just constantly still changing.
Absolutely.
Which I think, just to piggyback on that and going back to your earlier question of what are some of the things that are unique to this time, I've spent a lot of time working with couples who are claiming something similar, like we just want to get married now, we'll do the bigger party later. So then the question is okay, well, why is marriage now so important? And the answers to that really inform moments of the ceremony, what we share with guests in advance. And I find that it's been this great place for introspective conversation and also ideas of what, getting back to what a wedding is all about anyway. And so what is so special about right now for you as two people that entering into marriage is so important? And usually what comes out leads to some really beautiful things to share with people.
And what are some examples of that people have shared?
Some is the importance that certain family members can be around to witness it. You know, there's people that might not be around in a couple of years when we're in a maskless society or something. And so they want to make sure that they get to see their grandson or whomever it is declare their love. There's the other side, there's the less romantic side of it, where I've had couples that were like, well, we're actually scared about potentially losing our healthcare, so we're going to get married this year.
Less romantic, but warranted.
This is 2020. So, I mean, couples wed for all different reasons. And a couple like that also saw their wedding as a chance to make a political statement and encourage some activism. So there was something else positive that came from it. And just couples, I've had some that they're like, it's not on our timeline to wait. We will probably have a child at that 2-year anniversary party.
Yes.
And I think that's beautiful, because people should be writing the rules to the life that they want to live together.
100%.
On that note too, sorry, Gab, just to follow up, Jason, I'm curious as well, like from Men's Vows perspective, with the potential for a new Supreme Court nominee, obviously that brings up a lot of feelings for the LGBTQ community. I'm heartbroken by the prospect of that being overturned. So I'm curious if that is an added factor as well to people wanting to get married now before there's a new justice.
I would say 100%. I mean, this is a very, very scary moment for, for members of the LGBT community, but I also know for any woman that believes in a woman's right to choose and all the other issues that are sort of on the line here. And just watching this sort of go at like lightning speed before our eyes while we're in a pandemic and already voting in the election, it really speaks to the priorities of the party that's sort of in charge at the moment. But from our point of view, yes, I mean, we at Men's Vows have always tried to be a magazine that really provides information and inspiration, and finding that balance is very important for us. So while if you go on our Instagram, you see a lot of photos of beautiful couples sharing special moments, we really try with our articles to do stories of real weddings, of real marriages, and stay relevant to what this means for our community. We don't want people to have weddings or honeymoon in cities or countries that aren't welcoming to our community. We want to support LGBTQ friendly businesses. So highlighting who those people are is very, very important to us. And our tagline has always been Men's Vows, supporting men who marry. And so it's been actually a great opportunity for us to really expand how that can be interpreted. So we're not only showing weddings and talking about couples that are living in marriages right now. We had some couples that we've done interviews with who got married right before all of this happened. So spent their first year of life essentially in quarantine together.
Oh my God.
And I think it helps for other people who are potentially living like that or looking like their life might go there to find our magazine as a resource to tap into some of those stories.
Absolutely. And I find that is so interesting because a lot of times we think about just weddings being connected to special events and just a one-day thing that occurs and not really understand the full scope and the meaning behind it. And I feel like Men's Vows does an excellent job of really taking it from a bird's eye view and looking at what is important, why you are doing this, and really catering towards that, the LGBTQ community when they need it most. I think that's super wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you appreciate it.
Absolutely. Oh, and Amelia's back. Hello.
Yeah, she's back.
Back and better than ever. So,
I mean, it wouldn't be a virtual call if something like that didn't happen.
Oh, it's so true. And yes, absolutely. And so just going back to Wedfully, Natalie, I wanted to chat with you a little bit more about sort of what a day in the life of a virtual wedding planner is like, someone who really caters towards if not all virtual weddings. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah. So we always joke that we all have like these other hats we wear, but at the end of the day, every single one of us is a virtual wedding coordinator. We all have clients and do these weddings. Yeah. So the day in the life of a coordinator is very busy. We have a lot of clients asking a lot of really good questions. I think a lot of people are just curious. Like, this is such a new thing for everybody. We get a ton of questions. How is this going to work? And all this kind of good stuff. So a lot of it's responding to your clients, like making sure that you're answering their questions and like kind of providing that comfort for them. As far as kind of like the type of interactions we have with our clients, I think it probably looks different than most other wedding planners. We'll have like 2 kind of initial calls with our clients, just like walking through their timeline. What do they want to do during their 2-hour window of having us on this Zoom call with them? And then the week of their wedding, we always have like a tech rehearsal with our clients. So we'll go through the whole tech setup, like, hey, okay, if you're standing here, can I hear you on Zoom? Okay, let's move the mic, let's move the speaker. Can you hear me? Kind of doing all this like really, truly, we call an AV call, a purely tech run through. And then also we'll have rehearsals with every one of our clients, usually a couple of days before their wedding, where we'll set up all the tech equipment again, and then just have them do a dry run through, make sure that all of the coordinating between the virtual side and the in-person side is really seamless, and that it can kind of provide that best experience for everybody. But yeah, a lot of it, we have, so there's 7 of us that are full-time right now. And so I think everybody has somewhere around 20 weddings on their plate. So a lot of it is just making sure that all of those clients are comfortable and they kind of have all the answers to all these questions that they usually have.
Absolutely. And then with the actual reception post-ceremony, I was reading an article about how you have those breakout dance parties and you act as if a breakout space in the Zoom universe is more of like a guest table at a wedding. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think we found a couple of things that work really well to try and kind of marry the in-person guests and the virtual guests and make people like really engaged and have fun. One of those would be, we call them virtual reception tables. So on our end, we have basically the couple seating charts, but you kind of have however many people at however many tables, like all the rules kind of go out the window. And so we have somebody who's during the wedding the whole time is going through finding these people on Zoom, putting them in the appropriate room and creating reception tables virtually. Okay. And then at the very end of the wedding, usually it's at the end, it kind of depends, but usually at the end of the wedding, we'll tell people that they're going to go to their virtual reception tables and they'll be with family and friends. They can hang out and chat. And then we touch base with the couple and we help them go from room to room. We kind of usher them through these rooms so that they can say hi to everybody in a timely manner. Hi, Amelia. So that they can say hi to everybody in a timely manner. And just, I think that's one piece of the virtual wedding that really like increases couples like feeling all the love and support. Because if you don't do the virtual reception tables, there's like less opportunity to really see everybody's face who's attending this virtual event. So then if you put everybody in these smaller groups, the couple can go and say hi to everybody. They're like, oh my gosh, there's so many people here. And we always have to jump into the rooms and be like, sorry, we have to move the couple to the next room. And we all get boos for being the bad guy of taking the couple away. But it's fun. I think it's, people just want space to hang out and talk and catch up. And that's exactly what we're giving them. If it's the client and like them seeing all their family and friends, or even if it's the family and friends who are in those breakout rooms before the couple's gone around to their table, like they're like, we haven't seen each other in so long and it's been COVID. And so it's really fun. I think it creates like a lot of sense of, I don't know, just like sweet love and catching up during really hard times.
Absolutely. And that's so interesting because just what I always hear from couples who have their wedding is they feel like it's going by so fast because they have to make sure that they say hello to every single person or table at an in-person event, and they don't even have time to eat their own food or enjoy a glass of wine or dance or whatever. And so this kind of takes away the hassle of that. It's just you as the wedding planner are in control, and you can bounce them back and forth, and everyone gets a chance to say hello, and then they can go back to whatever they need to do.
People. Go ahead. I say people love when we push them along because they're like, I'm not good at ending conversations. So it's like, we'll do it for you.
Well, I had a set of clients this year that they were having 18 people in person and like hundreds on Zoom. And so what they decided to do is the night before we did like a rehearsal tech check for everybody. And that was the opportunity afterwards for anybody that wanted to say anything over Zoom to the couple, because they didn't want to, the following night of the actual wedding, go back to Zoom after the ceremony for like an hour. Yeah. And so, it's a lot of it is just having those conversations about, for the couple, what is your night really going to look and feel like, and how, some want to do that and some just don't. And we've also focused a lot on sending different types of care packages to the guests that are attending virtually, so they feel an even bigger connection to that it's more than just a login, that it's something physical that they can hold within the, while they're watching the ceremony. And then vice versa, we have them send something into the couple. So there can be something physically present at the wedding that has been sent from the guests that are attending virtually.
That is so wonderful. And so, with additional AV needs for a virtual wedding, with those care packages that you're sending out to the guests and to the couple, does it end up being sort of the same price as it would be for an in-person event, if not more?
No, it's never as inexpensive as I think clients initially think it's going to be when they're like, oh, we're going to do this virtually. And, it's going to be like very small. But it's certainly never the same as like having 250 people in person and hosting a 5-hour open bar. And,
that's true. I forget about that open bar.
and needing floral design for 25 tables and all the types of things that can really rack up a bill. But shipping is expensive, especially if you're shipping items like champagne, which I've learned. But these conversations ultimately come down to the client saying, but this is our wedding and we still want to make it special. So prioritizing where some of that money can be spent, I think it's important to allocate a lot of it to what you do for the virtual people.
Absolutely. And then I'm also wondering, when it comes to those partnerships that you had with vendors previously, when it came to in-person events, so let's talk about photographers, florists, even when it comes to, the photographers and florists and the people who set up and take down, the banquet staff, the people at the venue itself. How do you kind of keep those relationships and those partnerships alive during this time, or utilize those partnerships when it comes to virtual events?
Well, from my understanding, photographers as a vendor category have fared the best during all of this. They are still needed even for super small weddings. one of the photographers that I've worked with all the time, he had a bunch of sort of backyard 10, 15 person weddings that he kept trying to pitch me to be the planner, and the client's response is like, we don't need anything but a photographer. The rest we're fine to handle on our own. And so, I know that that's his experience. I don't want to speak for every wedding photographer. As we said at the beginning, this was already a very saturated market. And I know everyone has had their different struggles based on just how things went for them. But it's been very hard for venues like florists, where even if we can hire them for something like this, we're talking about needing a bouquet, a couple boutonnieres, maybe a centerpiece, and they still have their rents to pay at different storefronts that they were running and their teams. I've understood that florists have done the best that also do business that's not just weddings, those that still deliver flowers for holidays like Mother's Day, and you did a little bit better during all of this. And I've just seen a lot of the bakeries pivot to offering a lot more than wedding cakes.
Like what? I'm curious. Do you know?
Well, I think one of the trends of the year is the individual portion of everything. So these individually packaged desserts, things that don't require being sliced from a more communal, vessel, and so people feel safe about eating it. So, I'm seeing there's a bunch of them that I follow on Instagram, and I just love seeing the designs that they're coming up with how to make an individual dessert still feel as special as something like a wedding cake would, and how you can also produce it, for the masses. And just, again, looking at it as an opportunity to say we need to be as creative as possible here.
Definitely. Anything to add, Natalie?
So we don't really help clients do the individual packages out to all their virtual guests, but when clients take that into their own hands and do it, I'm like, something about it just elevates everything. Cause I, being the MC and the virtual coordinator, we play all these little hats during the wedding, but being the MC part of it, I'm like, go grab the cake that the couple sent you, and you can look in gallery view and everybody's eating the same cake, or they all have their little sparklers they're waving around. So I always tell clients, if they're like, have you ever seen this? I'm like, I actually love it. I think it's one of my favorite things that you can do to just make it that much more special for everybody.
And personal, especially going back to that, making sure that virtual weddings seem intimate and everybody seems connected, even if they're all looking at a screen at the end of the day. I feel like having something that's in person that they can touch and experience during the event is so helpful. And my other question, and forgive me if I'm asking a gazillion questions, I'm just genuinely so curious about all of this, but when you have worked, I'm sure, with multiple couples when it comes to virtual events, what's the most creative thing that you have seen from any of your couples that you have worked with that have come either for in-person or virtual weddings?
We have a lot of people that get really, really creative. I have a wedding coming up this weekend that I think might top the charts for creativity. But I think there's something really special about when couples will just kind of take things into their own hands and put their own personality into stuff. We had one couple a while back who they did let me show you around Brooklyn. This is where we all were supposed to be together, and created this video that we then could share as a little intro to their wedding. So I think just having people kind of go that one extra step, whatever that looks like for their personalities, though, I think makes it really special. And it's obviously all their family and friends who know them really well, so they laugh and they get it. So I don't know, we had another couple that did during our little intermission after the ceremony before the reception, they filmed themselves making their signature cocktail, and were play this and tell everybody to go make the cocktail along with us and send out this little recipe in the chat. So they wanted everybody to go make the drink that they would have had at the wedding. So lots of fun ideas.
Oh, I love that. That is so creative.
Yeah.
Jason or Amelia?
One of my couples from this year was a Jewish couple, and in a Jewish ceremony, the couple gets married underneath the chuppah, which is symbolic of what should be the couple's home. And often when someone leads a Jewish ceremony, they talk about how this is representative of the house, and therefore there are no walls to allow the family and friends to always come in that are a part of their life. And so we sent all of the guests that were attending virtual for that wedding a specific bottle of champagne that they were supposed to save for when they would attend. And they also had to send to the couple a paper flower in advance of the wedding that were then installed on the chuppah. So that way it could be like the virtual guests were part of the symbolic home to be. And that's how we designed the decor of the chuppah for that wedding.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And we filled it in with some real flowers too, just to make sure it still looked nice and lush. But it was also then for people that are logging in that night virtually, they can like see the flower that they sent in and see where it made it on there, and just really feel like that they're a part of it all.
Yeah, that they helped like make the evening happen. Yeah. So, and sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask, so for the guests that are watching from home, do you guys typically recommend that they get dressed up? Are they like, do they participate? Do they go along with that? Or are people like sweatpants on the bottom, nice blazer on top kind of situation?
Well, I think you just described the uniform of 2020. I'm not panning down tonight, right. Okay? I think it's a mixed bag. I mean, I haven't decided with any of my couples that we mandate what people wear who are logging in virtually versus how we usually state a dress code for in-person events. But I have been amazed at the amount of times that we start to see the guests populate in tuxedos and gowns. And I think just people who have been living at home or not had a reason to dress up just are happy to like make sure those things still fit and feel sort of glamorous for the night.
They're dying to get out of their sweatpants at this point.
We always joke about the no pants thing. Like everybody says that on their virtual weddings and it's such a joke, but I think like truly kind of across the board, most people will dress up. Like people are like so excited to have something to do, something to look forward to, something to dress up for. So I feel like you really do see a lot of people dressing up, but I don't feel like you said, Jason, like it's not mandated. You're not telling people what to wear. You're saying dress up if you want to. We get a lot of like from the waist up jokes. And so I really think people like are excited to put on real clothes, fancy clothes, put on some makeup and like have a fun night.
And Amelia, do you have anything I'm not sure if your connection's okay, but I'd love to hear about any creative things that your clients have been through.
Sorry about that. We have a maintenance guy outside and yeah, so that was fun. So I was panicking. So I'm on my phone now, so I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry at all.
Yeah, I think couples are getting more creative and involving their families, like he said, having them get a bottle of wine. We've had some couples send like a list of like pictures to take, what kind of little backgrounds, or send like little photo booth things, like little packages, like mini gifts to kind of keep them involved. And I really like the flower with the Jewish wedding. I think that's amazing. I definitely am going to carry that on to clients, because giving them something that they can see that they're a part of and actually feel like they're kind of there, I think it's important.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, perfect. And then just a couple more questions. So of course, you three are some of few that have really succeeded in the industry or stayed afloat in the industry during this very volatile time. What do you think you need in the future to continue to succeed or stay on this trajectory or even increase your success over time?
I think that's a question we get all the time, just kind of starting out during this pandemic. People are like, what are you going to do after? I think what we not necessarily need, but kind of where we see our future going are these smaller micro weddings, these elopements. Like, let's have that small intimate wedding, but let's just add this factor to it so that you can still share with everybody. I think it's going to be really interesting for us to kind of like look into different partnerships and venues and see if we can find people who can continue to like carry on this micro wedding thing. How can you have a small, affordable wedding that's not going to break the bank, but that you can also have all your people who are really special to you be a part of it and kind of witness your special day.
Yeah, I think definitely continuing to have the micro weddings and the options for them. I mean, we had elopements on our packages and styled shoots before COVID. So I think now they're a little bit more highlighted and a lot easier to market. Because my husband and I, we did a styled shoot for our wedding just because we wanted something small. So I think brides are going to want that, like still to be able to get like a cake table and dinner and get those formal like pictures that they wanted, and still be able to kind of enjoy the moment and have a small micro wedding or elopement.
Absolutely.
And I think the other thing that is really important to stay in touch with everyone about is so much of these conversations that we've been having about how COVID came as a pandemic and really, like uprooted all of our lives. And we will probably have hopefully a vaccine or treatments or ways to deal with it before we're going to have economic recovery from what this has caused all across the country. And I remember during the last recession, they talked about how the wedding industry was one of the few that really didn't take a hit. People will always get married, but they will probably spend less money on their weddings moving forward. And so we have to navigate that set of information and still keep our prices in line with what's on trend for who we market to and what our clientele is, and be adept that this is a changing industry. And so I always want to really find out from the clients that are reaching out to me or being recommended to me about like really what they feel comfortable spending right now, making sure that it's a good, fit for us to work together based on that. And also that I'm not all of a sudden giving away a lot more, my services for free or doing anything, that I'm still being a smart business owner.
100%. And I think people now understand that you could get more creative with your wedding than ever before. Because what I have read in so many articles is that the wedding industry has been so traditional and always the same since forever ago. And that's always been that way. And everybody thought that it was just going to remain that way. And now that we've kind of explored what it's like to be outside of the box, to see that other side of it, I think you're absolutely right. People are going to want to kind of stick with that, or they miss the traditional aspect of it and go back to it. But it's all about kind of what each and every particular client needs. Wonderful. And so we have 9 minutes left. I can't believe it. Do you have any piece of advice for couples who are watching from home right now, who are looking to plan their wedding for the remainder of this year or into 2021?
My biggest advice for couples is remember, this is your wedding. It's about you and your fiance, and regardless of what's going on around the world or within your family or budget, just remember why you're getting married and kind of go back to that moment instead of getting lost in the chaos.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
I would say my biggest piece of advice would be to talk to, the three of us and let's see if we can work together. No, I agree. That's what I've said to everybody. I mean, to sort of steal Amelia's point, is that if you're still choosing to move forward rather than postponing, always keep the focus, because I mean, this isn't new to this year, but we can't control what we can't control. And we're living in a time with so much changing information and things that we have to juggle. And so it's so important for clients to always just stay focused on, most importantly, like, I found the person that I love, that I want to spend my life with, and we're going to get to do that regardless of what the event looks like, and be okay that it might not be what you were putting on Pinterest for many years. What's most important is that you guys are meant for each other and you're in love and you're going to get married.
Yeah, I totally second that. I think people have really been put through the ringer this year, and I think like emotions are really running high, and this is like a really hard time for people, but like focus on what matters the most, the fact that you are going to get married and it's going to be great, it's going to be beautiful. Who cares if it looks different? Like, at the end of the day, you're marrying that person. And I think like from our perspective, it's like there's always ways to include people, even if it looks different than what you thought before. So just like keep an open mind, like just don't like, I don't, this is like so hard to say, but it's like keep an open mind and like just keep like persevering like your love, and like know that it's all going to work out, even if it might be a little bit different, it'll still be great.
And if I could just go back to one of the other questions that you meant about like sort of what we're doing within our businesses as we navigate a potentially smaller amount of clients or business to manage. I mean, at Men's Vows, one of the conversations that we had is that because we have less weddings to feature now. we have less wedding photography. We have less couples that are, getting married every weekend. And so we wanted to really look at what this opportunity could be. And so we have actually just launched a podcast called Do You Take This Man? And we want to focus on all the stories that we're already telling within our online magazine, but in podcast form to reach a bigger audience. And it's going to be everything from interviews with couples who have been living in quarantine together, how to survive quarantine, how to make it on the other side of this, how to still have weddings during this time. And we're hoping that can continue to just be a place of inspiration for our readers and listeners and anyone else that wants something that's sort of a combination of weddings, lifestyle, relationships, all the things that we cover.
I find that so interesting, especially when God knows that I have really dived into the world of podcasts since COVID has begun. And so that is so smart of you to really kind of gain that perspective of your audience and your main demographic in order to kind of cater towards that podcast side. I love it. I love that idea. You have to keep us updated on all of that.
We will, and you can all subscribe on Apple or Spotify or any other places that you get your podcasts.
We definitely will. And then Natalie and Amelia, do you have any other announcements that you'd like to share as well? No.
I don't think I have any big announcements. I wish I had a podcast. That sounds like a blast. Maybe I'll pitch a Wednesday podcast to Caroline. I love it.
Wonderful. Well, perfect. And then maybe just one more question. What do you think you can predict for 2021 when it comes to weddings? I know that we've noted that there's going to be a lot more virtual and a lot less traditional weddings, but any other predictions that you have?
It's going to be busy.
Yes. Lots of postponements mean very busy.
It's going to be busy, and it's no longer just weddings on Saturday nights. There are weddings happening Fridays, Sundays, weeknights because of everyone fighting to get a space on the calendar at the venue they wanted to be at. And I think that we're really seeing a shift in sort of the reception planning entertainment due to this less focus being on getting that moment where you get everyone onto the dance floor. So I'm seeing lots of talks about like longer dinner services, more creative ways of doing food, really bringing the entertainment to the meal rather than it all, being focused on getting everyone on the dance floor.
I second the busy thing. I think it's going to be a really fun, busy year. I mean, I think we as a team are planning on growing a ton next year because we're going to get everybody who's postponed and everybody who's in 2021 originally. And I just think it's going to be really, hopefully, fun and exciting year for the industry and just kind of seeing what happens with everybody.
Absolutely. Well, I am so excited to see what the industry will bring in 2021. And although this has been quite the roadblock starting in March of this year, I feel like we've really made lemonade out of lemons. And I just have to say how in awe I am, and I know that Gertie is as well, of how you've really pivoted your companies to stay relevant and stay exciting and really bring out what is important from weddings and the wedding industry as a whole. I think that's very admirable.
I agree. And I just want to thank you guys all for joining tonight. This has been a really informative panel. We've got some really cool notes that I'd love for you guys to look over and some great takeaways. So just thank you for joining tonight and sharing all of your insights with us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This was great, and it was nice to meet everybody too.
Absolutely. And then I'll send out a recap email after this so everybody has each other's contact information in case you want to reach out. Otherwise, if you want to share the YouTube video that's being live streamed right now, we'll give you the link as well. But thank you again and have a lovely rest of your Tuesday evening.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.